My guest this week is Prateek Rajagopal. Prateek is a film composer, record producer, and artist whose work spans the most ambitious corners of music, from Hollywood blockbusters to Bollywood, Tollywood, and immersive media. He's also served for many years as a chief songwriter, producer, and guitar player of Gutslit, India's premier death metal export. His credits include collaborations on The Mandalorian, Creed 3, Him, Eddington, and The Wrecking Crew. And he has since expanded his global footprint, scoring the Bollywood feature film Tu Yaa Main, as well as scoring and songwriting the upcoming Tollywood film Birthday. His score for the debut VR project Body of Mine swept the award circuits, earning a PGA award, a BAFTA, and a Games of Change award. Prateek is also the sole executive and record producer on Blarf, film scores for films that don't exist, the sophomore album from comedian and creative provocateur Eric André. The project is a genre-defining collision of experimental music, cinematic ambition, and sonic invention. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Revolutions Per Movie, Prateek Rajagopal. Hi, Prateek.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
I'm doing great. You know, we'll get into the fancy tuxedo work that was flown recently for you with Eric André in a moment. But when metal finds a child, when metal music finds a child, it changes them forever. How the hell did metal enter your life?
Oh my God, it was my brother. Actually, my brother who's just 2 years older to me. But at that, when you're growing up, it's like he's like the icon, right?
Yes.
So we'd gone to Sweden on a family trip. And my parents told me that they wanted to get my brother a Metallica DVD because my brother was asking for it. And so, but, it was supposed to be a surprise. And so we bought him the Symphony and Metallica DVD. And then I was really curious. I'm like, what is this band? Like, what's going on? And then when we gifted it to my brother, I thought he would let me watch the DVD with him, and he didn't. And he's like, no, get out of the room. Yeah. He's like, get out of the room. And I'm like, wait, why though? I want to, he's like, no. And so it built up my curiosity even more as a, 12-year-old who was just like, wait, why is he hiding this from me? And I really respect him. And so then one fine day, he was just like, okay, today's the day. You're going to come and sit next to me and watch the DVD. And he puts on Symphony and Metallica, and I was just so blown away by what I'd seen and watched. And he was explaining every little detail to me. He was like, okay, this is what Lars is doing on drums. This is what Kirk Hammett's like, that's a wah sound, on the pedal. And he just gave me this whole he went so deep into it, and my mind was just blown. And the next day I told my brother, I'm like, I want to learn these songs. I want to learn Master of Puppets. And he could help me convince my dad, get me an electric guitar. And then,
wow.
Yeah. And then from there, he introduced me to extreme metal, death metal, progressive metal. And he was like, oh, check out this band Opeth. And he was like, check out this band, Hate Eternal. And check out this band Dimmu Borgir. And all of a sudden I was like, holy shit. And then he was like, and then soon after he was like, fuck Metallica, check out Megadeth, they're better. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So it was, yeah, like you said, when metal finds someone, it just never leaves them. And it's still very much the through line. I don't actively listen to it anymore, but I'm an encyclopedia of the style because it's a very obsessive genre and culture and subculture. And yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I came through, hardcore punk, but there was such a similar thing because it was so underground. And then you would change your loyalty. You'd be like, I don't like that anymore. I like the weirder stuff.
Yeah.
I like Void and Die Kreuzen.
Totally.
I'm not into this. And then there's a point where you're like, that springboards into other influences. You're just like, it's not where you reach out to anymore.
Yeah.
But it's so baked into your DNA that it's like, I don't need to listen to it anymore. It's like, it's recall all the time.
100%.
24/7.
100%. I just, and having written so much in the genre for so many years, it's like, I've also figured it out, just the orchestration of it, the creativity of it. And But yeah, it's one of those things where it just doesn't leave you.
So were you playing like acoustic guitar or piano before
Never.
your dad got you? So electric guitar was your first
Yeah.
musical
Yeah.
instrument? Wow, that's amazing. So then what was your first band you got to be in?
So in high school, I was, excited about it and I wasn't good at all, but I was delusional and I was trying it. So it was in school. I just, part of high school bands. And then when I went to university, I went to university. So I was born and raised in Oman, Muscat in the Middle East. And then after I was done with my schooling, I was like, oh, I want to go to Mumbai because there's a thriving metal scene over there. And the education system's really good in India. So I was like, maybe I should just go there. I'll be close to home at that time, Oman. And I could also do metal. And so I just, found myself in a guitar store one day. And there was a guy who was like, hey, I think you should join this band called Chronic Phobia. And I'm like, what the hell? And it was just this random metal band from Bombay. And then eventually I kind of ended up joining Gutslit, which was at the time like a grindcore, more grindcore leaning band.
What are the elements that make grindcore?
I would say when you take metal and punk and you put them together, so it's like a lot of shorter songs, a lot of, the classic tick tack tick tack tick tack tick tack. You've got like punk grooves, but
Okay.
it's like loud screams and just I think the themes, right? So punk is all about it's just I think thematically it was very punk. So you're talking about, um anti like establishment and all of these things, but then it's all around this whole metal, like the guitars are metal, the drums can be more extreme. It's like you're going from a punk beat from like and then you're like blasting. It's like this really cool amalgamation of because punk and metal were never truly united in the 80s, right? Like
It's so true.
yeah,
It was like you almost had to cross the street.
exactly.
Like it
Yeah,
was so weird.
yeah. But then I feel like grindcore came and kind of just it was this perfect blend of the two. And so yeah, Gutslit was more grind leaning at the time. And then I kind of um I loved a lot of death metal music. So I thought, hey, why don't we make this a little more death metal just because everyone had common influences. And so we became more death grind. So we became more of a
Okay.
death metal band with grind influences. And then I formed a progressive metal band with Animals as leaders, role drummer Naveen Copperwise. That we released one record, and then it was that there was nothing after. And yeah, and then I had a progressive rock solo project called Hoya. I released two EPs and a full length with that, and yeah, so I between 2012 and 2017 in India, I released about 6 to 7 metal records while doing university, while working at a bank, while writing ad jingles. And it was just this crazy time in my life. I was just doing whatever I wanted to.
Right. Well, I have to ask you about composing for the bands you were in. Is there a specific tuning, for instance, for the songs you were composing for Gutslit? Is it like drop D situation, or is everything dropped? And then also, not even just the tuning, but like, where do you start with a composition
Yeah.
like that? Because they're often very long and very complicated.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't even repeat the phrase or the moment ever again.
Yeah. Totally. I think in terms of tuning, I love 7 string guitars. I love six as well. So I like writing in many tunings, but Gutslit was predominantly standard B and drop A. So
Okay.
it was nice when I could get my, I would write a song in standard B and then go like, let me try. It makes me think differently when I just change the tuning. And then now I'm hitting notes differently or there are more happy accidents. So that was predominantly the tuning part of it. And in terms of where to start, I think I was working from such a raw, creative headspace at the time where I did not know music theory. Like I didn't know a note. I couldn't tell you what a note on a piano was. I was just
Right.
writing
Okay.
from complete feel and inspiration. And I would just write a bunch of riffs and I would also transition in a very songwriting perspective. And I credit my brother for that because he would say you should always, even if you learn guitar, it should always be to eventually write music. So he also pushed me into writing music because he was like, yeah, it shouldn't just be a tool. You shouldn't just be someone who just shreds like all the time. That's not cool either.
Right.
And so I would just write from, I'd be like, oh, I would listen to so much of music like Misery Index and, Dying Fetus and then Bloodbath and then Hate from Poland. And I just Vader and, I was just so like Napalm Death, Brutal Truth. And I would just listen to their shit and go like, wow, all of them have their own world they've built. And I would just kind of embody this world that they were trying to, that what they were trying to say essentially. And so I would listen to it, and immediately if I was inspired, I would just go pick up the guitar and then go to the jam room with my drummer, and we would just flesh out songs.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel like I'm untrained as well. I still am completely mystified by my instrument.
Yeah.
No matter how long I've been playing it,
Yeah.
there's certain things I'm like, I never really learned,
Yeah.
Theory or things like that, which, you did later when you went to USC.
Yes.
But, I think that it's fascinating because I always assumed that people going into like something that was so intricate as metal, where it's just like, it just sounds, I don't hear the mistakes in a funny way, but I'm sure there's all sorts of things going on there that are just pure accidental, just magic. And it's like, okay, it's kind of better that way when we split off the atom here that we're trying to do instead of, So when you're performing this music, can you go on autopilot or do you have to concentrate really hard? Because I feel like in indie music, like I can just be as sloppy as I want, as long as I'm close to it. But what is it like for the things you're doing, which sound so intricate?
There's always this thing about music or art where you have technique or you have artistry, and both can't exist. They have to exist together, and there has to be a middle ground between the two. So if you have crazy ideas, only the technique can get you to that place where you can execute your art the way you want it to and be intricate with ideas and stuff like that. So I think I spent a lot of time developing my right hand technique on the guitar and just like soloing and just, the way I would write riffs was very like galloping, like the like even just those things were so you had to figure it out. And then down picking, right? There's all these techniques. And so a lot of that naturally would inform my compositions and vice versa. So I had this vision of each song and I'm like, okay, I want this part to be like a Slayer riff. And now I want to go into like a decap style, like tremolo riff with just like blasts or just 16-note double bass and just cymbals. And so it was so much of just vibes, I was like, oh, these are just like, and then how do I execute that using technique? I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. Yeah. No, that it does. What's the thing? It happens in Blarf a couple times. I've never known what it's called. But it's like, oh, like it's like a little, like harmonic,
a pinched harmonic. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah.
How do you do that?
So you got to use a specific part of your skin actually. So it's so you're not using the pick. You're using a little bit of. It's like when the I've never actually consciously said this out before, but it's like you use the plectrum and then you also have a part of your skin touching the string at the same time, and that's what gives you the sound.
Who developed that, like back in the day? Who are the like the heroes who did that?
From top of mind, I would say Dimebag Darrell was the one who really, from Pantera, he kind of made that so evident. And there's also, it's all over a lot more, I would say, death metal, but Suffocation, they would do it a lot. I don't know who developed it, though. That's a very good question.
Lou Barlow from Sebeda just came on and Dinosaur Jr. to talk about the Pantera Vulgar Video VHS tape.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, that weird, it's like a squeal. It's very unique.
Yeah.
You're working in a bank. You're in this, this metal scene in India. You're writing jingles.
Yeah.
What makes you all of a sudden look at the screen scoring program at USC?
It's a great question. It was, when I was writing. So after working, after I graduated, I worked a little bit, and then tried. I was like, okay, I want to do music full time and like at least give it an attempt. And I just, my buddy was like, hey, you can earn a lot of money writing jingles. And so I'm like, cool. The first thing you hear when you get into music is, wait, I gotta figure out how to make money doing this because there's very less money. The perception is that there's less money. And so I just started to write jingles, and what I really liked about it was that every day I would be writing in a different genre of music. But I didn't know those genres. I only knew metal. So I was really bad at it at the time. I was like, my friends who were established ad composers, they would send me work and I would just bomb it completely. Like it was just the worst thing ever. But I was still so excited and I was still going pitch to all these ad executives. I'm like, hey, check out my music. And now that I think about it, they're probably like, this shit sucks. But there was this one day where at 10 a.m. I went into this studio in Mumbai to write a jingle because they just call you and they're like, you got to get here in 2 hours and the jingle has to be done in the next like 5 hours. So I got there at 10 a.m. and then I left the next day at 10 a.m. So I was awake 24 hours and there were executive studio people constantly coming in. They were giving me notes and it was just on my cab journey back the next day. I was like, what am I doing? Do I want to be an ad composer? Like, this is hell. It's crazy. Also because I wasn't good at it. But, I was like, I don't want to be an ad composer. I feel like I'm more artistic than that. I'm not able to kind of fit the mold of just, generic music that just fits this world that's very specific and 100 people are telling you what to do. And so at this around the same time, I was listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead. Coincidentally, I had no idea they were scoring films. I loved watching movies. I didn't care for film scores, to be very honest. It's not like I, was at 3 years old and then I watched like Star Wars and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I want to be a film composer. No,
Right.
This was when I was like 22, I think. I was like listening to Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead, and then I got so obsessed that I went into their journeys and what they do, and all of a sudden, I watched this video of Jonny Greenwood at his, have like a 46 or a 50-piece orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall performing this piece called Horror Vacui, and it was just him like writing this crazy horror music and with an orchestra, and that just blew my mind. And then I started to find more of his scores, and then same with Nine Inch Nails. I was like, wait, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are doing all this really cool stuff. Like, I remember watching Gone Girl and having a feeling like, wait, the musical world here feels different. It feels different from what most people are used to. And so, the dots started to connect in my head. And I was like, I think I need to study and like get into film scoring. I don't know how to do ads, but maybe I should go and work in Hollywood,
Uh-huh.
It was funny. And I also was really practical about it, where I knew that I could buy a synthesizer, learn it from YouTube and figure it out. But how do I figure out writing for an orchestra? You need it at your disposal. You need to be in the ecosystem where players, you can learn with different musicians. And so I started to look up programs and I found USC's film scoring program, and it just seemed like a no-brainer. Like they had, Tyler Bates, who all these incredible Hollywood composers who weren't just traditional film composers, but also artists like Tyler Bates and, all these Ludwig Göransson, they all would speak at the school. And also the professors who worked at USC, they would actually professionally go and work in the industry. So I applied to USC and it was only 20 students and I got through. And it's 2019, I moved to study film scoring, essentially.
Did you learn to then read music and write scores at this? Like what was because I'm assuming when you went in,
Yeah.
you didn't have that knowledge yet.
Great question. So, yeah, this was a master's program, which means you had to have an undergrad in music. And I didn't. And I just still sort of applied and I sent in a lot of, my experience and portfolio material. And I still don't know why they took me in, because the first day of school, I asked my, Pete Anthony, who's one of the most revered orchestrators in Hollywood. He was my professor. And on day one, I was like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I'm so excited to learn from you. And he was like, can you read? And I'm like, not really. He's like, well, you should start right now. And I'm like, oh, shit. And all of my USC cohort buddies, they're all prodigy pianists, and they went to music school, they went to Peabody and like Berkeley and NYU, and this was their third time going to music school, And so I just had to figure it out, and it's almost like in India, there's no infrastructure there. It's much better now, but there's no infrastructure for studying Western classical music because you don't grow up playing Western classical instruments. The access to it's a lot of Indian music, a lot of fusion music. And so, I didn't have the choice, honestly. It's not like it was ever something you're exposed to and then you can just think about it. It all happened by accident. And so I had to really figure it out. And while applying to USC, I was trying to pick it up as much as I can. I took lessons from a few of my friends. And I think at USC, the moment I, stepped foot is when I really had to learn how to read and write music traditionally.
Wow. Well, I mean, you've done a lot of work in Hollywood now, and then you just scored that Bollywood film, Tu Yaa Main.
Yes.
And it's such an interesting film because the first half is like pop songs.
Yeah.
And then the second half is like complete you.
Yeah.
It's like all on your shoulders. And it's much more, like Hollywood, like traditional scoring.
Yeah.
So did he have certain films he wanted you to reference? I'm just curious about the amount of freedom you have in terms of scoring something like this.
Yeah, it's so dependent on the director, is what I've learned. Like Bejoy Nambiar, who directed Tu Yaa Main, he was a fantastic collaborator. He was like, get bolder, like do whatever you want, And the parameters he gave me were just, he wanted something almost like synthy initially. He was like, hey, I want it to feel almost like a retro monster horror movie.
Yeah. Or John Carpenter.
John Carpenter, and just
Goblin.
Goblin. Yeah. And we started in that direction. And then at some point he was like, hey, maybe we should make this more cinematic. And so I'm like, great, let's make this more hybrid. And as the process evolved, like it became more of a hybrid score where it's a lot of synths, a lot of strings. And then in the final act is when I actually bring in brass and a lot of modular electronic percussion. And so it just evolved, as the process went on. But he definitely encouraged me to keep going. And yeah, this was a unique movie in the sense that, like you said, the first half is just, it's like two different genres. They just like clumped it together. And the second half has no songs almost.
No.
First is just like full of songs. And it was just a really cool experience. And definitely in part thanks to the director. So if you work with someone cool, he just wants to try shit. Like this movie, right? It's like, wait, this is so random. It's like, but he was like, I just want to do it. So, yeah.
Right. So when somebody is like screaming in the film, or they're putting in sounds of the monster, like, do you have to stay out of the way? Are there times where you're like, okay, like the sound design and the actors are like in the same sonic world that like I put this instrument in and now I need to restructure it? I just always wondered.
Yeah, I don't even think about sound effects. I don't I just do my own thing and I let them figure it out in the mix.
Okay.
Because like I think music and sound effects, if you bring the two departments together, they might butt heads. And so generally most composers I know and I've worked with, and we generally don't work. And generally, sound effects is more of a, of course, it's extremely creative, but a lot of it is also, I think, like music is a little more abstract, and so I feel like if you want people to feel emotions, the emotion should come first, which and music is
Right.
the best form of expressing that form of emotion, if that makes sense. So I don't think about it, I just do it.
I wasn't sure if there was spotting things where the director's like, all right, you need to be quiet here.
Yeah.
Or, and you need, or we want this to really, like it's popping out of
Yeah.
the pool. Like now,
Yeah.
like.
That's actually, yeah, you bring up a good point, because for this movie, I learned a lot about how Bejoy, the director, like, even though I gave him tons of music, including, like, without even thinking about sound effects, the way he edited it in the mix, he would just like chop off my music and have a sound effects and like sound effect. And it was really interesting how he played with the two elements. And so that was, it's, if a good director knows what he wants to convey with the story, I think he makes those choices. And sometimes even I'm surprised by them in a good way.
Well, what about when you composed for VR?
Yeah.
I was reading about In the Current of Being, which is about the true story of Carolyn Mercer,
Yeah.
who is a survivor of electroshock conversion therapy.
Yeah.
And you wear like haptic vests and sleeves and gloves to participate through this piece. Where do you begin with something like this?
So VR is so spatial and moody, and you can explore, like when you're looking around and you can see everything around you. I almost feel like the music should never leave you, if that makes sense. And there's
Yes.
just more of a playground in VR, in video games. And video games, still you're watching it through like a TV, right? VR is still not developed for, it's still, you get the opportunity to immerse people. You still have that. Who knows when it's going to change, like pretty soon. But while it is like that, you're giving them the headset, they have to be there and go through the experience. It's like, how much can you like just give them the absolute best spatial experience to convey the storytelling that's being conveyed? I think that's what I really enjoy about VR, where I can really think about space, about panning, about experiments, and oftentimes I'm going between atmosphere and environment and story, and I'm bouncing between the two a lot.
So for Caroline's story, how did you want to tell it and support it musically?
Yeah. So of course it's horrific, right? Like, conversion therapy, and it's, so that's the straightforward part. But I think and so for In the Current of Being specifically, I would move between the environment and then the horror and follow the journey, which was essentially just a voice note recorded over Zoom. And then Cameron, the director, he built the whole world around that voice note. And so I was jumping back and forth between how do I want the environment to feel, and then when do I move in and start to convey the things Caroline has been through, which is super horrific and dark and weird and strange and just like experimental, literally and figuratively. And all the way in the end, it's like the story ends on a more on almost a bittersweet note, where Caroline's just talking about how we're more similar than we think, and all of these are just labels and all of that. So by the end of it, it became a little more, I would say, almost like score, like a good, a bittersweet emotional score moment. So yeah, I was kind of jumping between these different worlds, which you get to do, unlike, say, film, where you've got color, you have dialogue, you have sound effects, you have movement, camera movement, and it tells you exactly where to go, what tropes to fall under sometimes.
I mean, what's your opinion of the accessibility and like the future of it? Do you feel like it will find a larger audience at some point? Because it's just been here for a while, and it feels like it still is like the kind of thing that, oh, I have to go see it at a museum or a special event, and it is expensive to make still, I believe. So what do you think can happen with it, and will it be more available?
That's a very, very good question. I mean, it's been around for a while, that's for sure. There's so many companies that have like it started like 12 to 15 years ago minimum, right? Like
Right.
and it's still not quite off the ground yet. Um and a lot of the funding still comes from, it's like people who make VR projects don't make money off of it. They are just it's like startup culture. It's like people are still
Right.
just funding the projects for a lot of bringing awareness to moments or to impact. It's still used for a lot of impact, but it's still not profitable. And but at the same time, you have like these massive tech companies just like putting money into it and building headsets and the Vision Pro and you have Meta and Snapchat is coming out with Snap glasses and you can so the money is still being pumped into it. Where it's going to go, who knows? With this whole AI thing and just more technological advancement, maybe it'll become more of a staple. But I think it's still gonna definitely have a place because technology is just it's officially gone to this point where okay, technology is inevitable now,
Right.
and people are just so used to it. And even 6 years ago, like most people weren't on Zoom so often, and now it's so normal.
I know.
I feel like that's what's gonna happen with VR. It's just gonna become such an overnight thing. But it's definitely like maybe 12 or 15 years ago, it was in phase one. And now we are definitely in phase two of VR.
Originally, it seemed like it was just so entertainment based,
Yeah.
but the things that have really succeeded have been like story based,
Yeah.
art based, or even, like the future of health.
Yes. Absolutely.
I've talked to people who work in VR, and they're trying to get funding to help people that will help with pain management,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
help somebody be able to use an artificial limb quicker. And because it just rewires the brain in a different way.
Absolutely.
And the one time I did VR, it was so overwhelming that I pointed at something and hit my wife. I forgot
Oh my God.
that I was like in this thing. I just was
Yeah.
so immersed after 3 minutes that I was like, yeah, no one's here but me. And they're standing there looking
Yeah.
at this idiot in this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I do feel like it has such great potential.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of places are still like, well, it's gaming or this or that. They're kind of going for like the kind of the quick, easy way to get it into the home. So
Yeah.
it'll be fascinating to see where it goes. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think as a composer, I love working in that medium because it's so freeing. And so, if anything, I just hope it lasts and continues to keep growing for that purpose, for like music people, for musicians, for composers to kind of keep dipping their feet in different, um, especially now that movies, tech companies have taken over. It's like the landscape's changed so much. It's just a fun place for artists to still kind of make art
yeah.
and make things that have impact. So, yeah.
Well, no tech company has taken over Blarf yet. It's time for
No, hell no. Oh, yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
it's time for our Blarf chunk. The music that you composed with Eric for film scores for films that don't exist.
Yes.
How did you guys end up on each other's radar?
Oh, so so I graduated from USC. So we can literally link in back to then. But I graduated from USC, and then a professor of mine, essentially the program, it is just 20 students, and they have a history of churning out a lot of successful composers in Hollywood. And one of them being Ludwig Göransson. And so, one of my professors was like, "Hey, you would be a good fit for this team because you're not a traditional composer, and you should just apply for, try and just get a meeting with Ludwig's assistant at the time, Joe Shirley." And so I emailed him, and we were talking and for a while, and then at some point Ludwig was like looking for someone to assist him, and then I through Joe, I was, offered the opportunity to interview. I didn't get the gig with Ludwig, but at the time, Joe was moving out of Ludwig's camp. And Joe was like, hey, you should just come along on this journey and, you should be my right hand. And around that time, Joe Shirley and Ludwig Göransson scored Eric's movie Bad Trip. Um, they scored, and so they were working with Eric for a while on that movie. And Eric, but at the same time, Joe was so busy. He was like, well, we were going into Book of Boba Fett by Star Wars, and he had this Michael B. Jordan movie coming up, and Eric kept hounding Joe, and he was like, hey, like I need someone to help me with these random film score ideas I have, and Joe made the connect. Basically, he introduced me and Eric and I immediately got along because he's an outsider artist in literally what he does, comedy and just like being a surrealist, strange experimental comedian. And for me, I had that same approach in music, where I came from complete left leaning to now I'm in this world of Hollywood and I'm just trying to break wherever I am, I'm trying to do something that's the opposite. So we got along on in just like in terms of the way we think. And I sent him a lot of my music and he immediately was like, hey, let's chat. And I think in one conversation, he was already keen to have me help him out. And then in two, the deal was done. He introduced me to the label and we started working on the project. And this was 2021 Jan or Feb.
Wow. Yeah, because Eric's first Blarf record is like Plunderphonics. It's like pushing back on fair use and copyright control.
Yeah.
And so when I heard about this, I was like, oh, there's another Blarf record coming out. I was like, this is so different. And and it's known that he went to Berkeley School of Music and was a trained. He can play upright bass and jazz and things like that. And but like when you got together, was the intention to make a serious record or have it shimmer off Eric's personality, or like were you like it's a hard record to wrap my head around tonally because it is very earnest in very many moments and very like, oh, this I could feel like, oh, there's a song Stars Without Light, which you guys performed a while ago when you did it live, and Eric's like bowing the upright bass, but I'm just like, it's legit. It's like, that's not a joke. It's like a really beautiful song with like synth drone and orchestration. So I'm just curious about like the line you walked tonally in terms of like when to give a middle finger or when to embrace tradition.
Yeah, I mean, Stars Without Light was the first song we wrote.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
We met in February of 2021, and in May, the song was done, and it was all remote. And most of what is on the record, 99% of it is still from the demo.
Wow.
Because it was just so perfect that even after we recorded orchestra over it in Budapest, I had to be very careful about how much of the orchestra I could use. And this ties back into your question of being earnest, I think the goal with this record, it started off with Eric honestly being he was like, yeah, I want to do something. Some of the ideas did seem like almost comedic, the initial ideas, but I could tell that he didn't want it to be a comedy record, and neither did I.
Right.
I'm very far disconnected from comedy music, and I can do it, but it's just not something I want to be known for. But he'd sent me references that were Ennio Morricone and like, Georges Delerue and Arvo Part and contemporary classical music. And so straight off of that, I alone in the beginning, I knew that this is not going to be a joke. And I made sure on my end, I was like, I don't want this to be a joke record, because I think there's a lot of serious, real ideas here. And there's nothing quite like this that's ever been done, where people are just like releasing like you have a surrealist comedian who wants to put out a film score record with a hip hop label and they want to hire a death metal, extreme metal, experimental, electronic, classical guy from India to
Ex-banker.
produce it. The ex-banker to, to produce this record. It's like I'm like, this shouldn't be a joke. As
Yeah.
as much as it's as much as it seems like it, I'm like, no, we should actually lean into how the music should tell you that it's sincere, it's honest, and 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 for the live show, for example, I think this is a really good example where we have the song Mercury ripping down my spine.
Yeah, it's
And it
amazing.
yeah, and we the whole time we wrote that song, we would just have red lights and just synthesize like my modular synth rig. We were just, playing with it on the fly, getting distorted, getting weird, almost like Sano meets like like drone music and like but live when we were playing that song, like Eric was being Eric. He went on into the audience and he started to like strangle people
Yeah, I
and
saw him pouring beers in people's
yeah, yeah,
mouths
yeah.
and
Yeah, and at the same like so people were laughing while I was like modulating this really like this I was opening the cutoff filter and like
yeah.
and it's all dark and weird and people are just laughing in the audience and I was trying so hard to not laugh because I'm like come on and then 2 minutes later when Eric was back on stage he started to like he started to like throw plates into a trash can and break plates and now all of a sudden people are back into the music and the shock value of the song. And that's I think what it is. It's like people want to associate Eric as the comedian, but the moment they listen to his music, they I wanted to make like we wanted to make sure that they don't view it that way. And I think that's been successful.
Did you come up with kind of a list of, okay, well, like we kind of need a song that maybe sounds like it could have been like an Italian horror film. Like Dead Ballerina is so
Yeah.
gorgeous and with like,
Yeah.
just the looping of the melody over and over again, which is like my favorite kind of score.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the end of Phantom of the Paradise or something where it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is like such a bittersweet ending to something. And then you have like Run for Your Death, which is like so frantic and high pitched. Did you guys come up with like, oh, it'd be nice to have kind of like a spaghetti western thing here and maybe a John Williams-esque thing here? Did you have like a little list that you wanted to build from?
Not really. So for Dead Ballerina, like Eric sent me the melody on a voice note. He was like, I want to do something like bum 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 bum. And he just hummed that entire melody. And I kind of just ran with it, and so much of it was that like he would initiate the idea and then I would take it and add stuff to it, orchestrate it, make it cooler and just expand on them and make it what it is. And then he would give his input and then we would sit in the studio and just jam till we were happy. And so for Dead Ballerina, yeah, like it definitely sounds Italian. It's got I think just the harmony is very much like that. It's got it ends with the five chord, but on a major and like all of these things. And um, but for Run for Your Death, that was like one of Eric's melodic ideas from when he was in 12th grade. He's like that yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he was just like, I just want to, he just wanted to revive this idea that he had since 12th grade. And so it definitely evolved from Italian film scores for films that don't exist to what it is now, which is, I would say, is more of a modern calling card, modern music calling card to score films and what film music can be.
Yeah, and there's still some Blarf type elements. I think I hear like a dot matrix printer at one
Yes.
point,
Yeah, yeah,
and I isolated the fake children voices and mercury dripping down my spine. It's
yeah,
like somebody talking about it's children talking about some TV episode, and it's
yeah,
just really confusing. And then during Piano Concerto number 0, which is like feels like it's trying to push the limits of performance. it's Eric's piano solo is basically him destroying a piano. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. You nailed it.
Okay.
Chris, you're amazing.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So for that song, it was like every song has a story. So for Piano Concerto, it was he just for 6 months, he was like, I want to smash piano. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he would just not respond. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ignore this request. And then, because Eric has the coolest and the craziest ideas, and it's sometimes I'm like, okay, wait, we have to wait for this to evolve and see what it is. Um, and then a month later, he's like, I still want to smash a piano to a song. And I'm like, what? Let's figure this out. Like, what do you mean? And then I started to go back to the tracks that we wrote, and I'm like, wait, should we add piano smashing to any of these songs? And then he's like, no, no, no. I want to write a new song. I want this to be my piano solo. And so essentially, I'm like, okay, what do you think? How do you think we should start this? And so I gave him ideas. I was like, okay, maybe we should start almost like Russian and sad and emotional, and then just start smashing a piano to it. And so we tried that, and then we were like, okay, maybe not this. There should be a contrast. As you can tell from this record, there's a lot of contrast,
Yes.
right? In
Yeah.
each song. It's like, and so um eventually we stumbled across this more like I love Jonny Greenwood, and he's very inspired by Steve Reich, a lot of modern like Penderecki and and I love all of those guys. Like that's the world I'm really into, and so I was like, why don't we try this? And I just sent him a voice note. I'm like, what do you think of a melody like bum bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba ba ba? I was on a walk and I came up with this melody, and then I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, wait, that's perfect. And then I just fleshed it out, like that. I was like, okay, cool. And then Eric could feel that, oh, this was the contrast we needed, and so I built out that track. And at the right time, I programmed like a piano smash hit, and then we basically drove to the valley, and Lance actually shot the video and recorded audio, and we smashed the piano, recorded the audio, got video, real time to the song, and then I implemented that back into the song. And just, once we did that, I'm like, okay, now we gotta build it up better and almost make it darker as it's going.
Right.
And make it feel like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. Like shit.
Well, it does. It really.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
Well, how about both of you communicating with a traditional orchestra? Because you did some of this in Budapest too, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of like, hey, here's what we're doing, and it being a little left of center for people, was that easy to do? Like, are most orchestras kind of game for experiments like this?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I made sure we chose the Budapest, orchestra, because they score a lot of films all the time. They're very busy and booked and busy, and they get it, and I think modern film music is very hybrid. And so they're used to playing to backing tracks to, you can present them with an electronic idea and they can recreate it. And I think the most important thing is we got a good amount of time with them. We got about 3 full days with them, which is a lot. And we really leaned in and had fun. And it was just also because I'm in the film scoring world, I know the logistics around these things. And I know who are the ones who are good, who are the ones who it would probably take more time,
right,
to figure it out with. And we also have a budget. So I think Budapest made the most amount of sense. And we also got to just go to, Budapest and just have fun in the city and go out at night, get drunk, and just walk around. And so we also shot a documentary that's dropping dropping at the time of release. And so, yeah, they're definitely ready. Like most orchestras, I would say these days are very proficient in Europe, in the US. Of course, I think the players in London are arguably like to me, number one in terms of how experimental they get. And then
Right.
Iceland has a great orchestra.
Amazing.
Vienna does. Yeah. So,
Well, it's funny because I've seen footage of Eric, like you're both in the studio with the orchestra, and he's like,
yeah.
"Ah!" and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I know this is probably
Yeah.
out of context a bit in the
Yeah.
edit, but they're just like looking across the room at him.
Yeah. It's really funny.
Because, you got language, and then you've
Yeah.
got the language of music, and then it's
Yeah.
like you've got energy, and you're like, who are these young guys? And
Yeah.
it's
No,
amazing.
that's definitely anywhere Eric goes, I think, he just makes it so fun and lively and exciting. And
Yeah.
that specific idea was for the end of Dead Ballerina, like the trumpet line, like he literally sang that out on the mic, and we had the players do it. And thankfully, our conductor was really good at translation, so he was, speaking to them in the local language and translating what we were trying to say. So
Right.
we figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah, but what about translating it live recently? What was that like?
Oh my God. That was fortunately no hiccups, a total success, 2 sold out shows.
Yeah.
But I think the road to getting there, because I music directed the show and I
Oh, wow.
played a bunch of instruments like guitars, synths, and programming, and just like the laptop's the king, because
Right.
you're sending like clicks and feeds and routing to the entire orchestra, but also the players, and to put something like this in such a short span of time was it was a lot of intense work, because if even one thing could have gone wrong, like it would have bombed the show.
Like a plate being shattered and hitting a photographer.
Yep, exactly.
I saw that footage. Eric just like stops.
Yep.
And you're like, oh,
He's like,
Eric is human. Like he's
Yeah,
worried
yeah.
for something. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I can't
Yep.
say I'm sorry because
Yeah.
we're in the middle of our amazing songs. It's
Yep.
it's so amazing.
It was wild. And I was next to him and I'm like, oh my God. But what do people expect going into an Eric André
Yeah,
experience?
they have to sign like an NDA
Yeah.
when they go in practically.
Yeah.
Who was playing saxophone and tenor sax with you that night?
Jacob Skesny. I hope I got his last name correct.
Okay.
That I pronounced it correct. But he's like so good. He was crazy. And that was like, there was this, a Charlie Hayden style track that Eric wanted to do a version of. And so Jacob, we got connected through Blake Estrada, who was on upright bass, who was one of Eric's really dear friends. And
Okay.
so we got a little jazz trio together for that.
And then
It's super cool.
the finale of the show, I'm assuming, and the finale of the record, the 1869 overture, which I had to look up and be like, it's not 1869, is it? It's 18.
Yeah, Tchaikovsky.
Yeah. Why did you lean on that piece as like, it's at that point, like also on the recording, was that a like anything goes moment, or was that a mix thing, or was that a performance thing? Because it's just pure cacophony.
Yeah. So again, I think that's the only track I would say that's very that has the comedic wild child energy of Eric, because that was his vision completely. Like he was just like, I want to do a cover of this track and it has to sound like the worst children's orchestra on the planet. He's like, it should be the worst children's orchestra on the planet. And so I'm like, that's honestly the easiest thing. Like, you just have to tell them to play wrong notes and play
so
off
killer.
the click. And so it's almost easy, and they know the song.
Right,
like
right,
everyone
right.
knows that song. So it's like, okay, cool. Let's just, so even recording, they're like, let's go, like play it more off tune, like play it off the beat, like off the click, and just keep swinging back and forth.
Yeah, there's also one comedic, well, I'm assuming it's a comedic moment on the record, which is at the end of What's for Dinner. It's like it finishes and then it's like,
Jenny,
bum, bum. And I'm like, they could not help themselves. They had to put this thing where people are like, what? Why is that there?
And the funniest thing about that part was that the ending, just that Jajan, took us probably an hour and a half to figure out. We would play it back and then move it just a little bit here, and then it would come Jajan, and we're like, no, it doesn't feel right. And then we moved it back, and we played the whole track down, and I'm like, okay, now it feels right. But to figure that out, it took an hour and a half. Like, and the rest of the song was just we just cranked it, It was just
Yeah.
but that
so
ending,
funny. That's so funny.
I know it's wild.
What is coming next for you?
So for now, I scored my first Telugu movie, which is an Indian language, South Indian language. So the movie RRR that was in the Oscar race like 3 years ago. It's a really cool part of the Indian film industry where they're right now arguably like number one, more than Bollywood too, in terms of reach and just, so I scored my first Telugu movie with the RRR producer's daughter, and it's her producer debut, and it's an amazing movie where it's just score and acting, and the actor, the protagonist is, it's like he's mute in the movie. So it's like performance and score, and
Amazing.
It's produced by this really interesting part of the Indian film industry, and so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, I'm in talks with a few more really interesting stuff in the pipeline. So, and yeah, hopefully more Blarf live shows. I think everyone's really happy. They're sold on the idea, which is what I was trying to do the whole time. I was like, guys, like this can be big. This can be big. And I think after these 2 sold out live shows, everyone's finally on board, and they're like, let's go. And I'm like, yeah, let's go win a Grammy. Who's stopping us?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes. Get the EGOT going.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much again, Prateek. It was so nice to meet you, and I'm so excited to see what's coming up next, especially that film by the people who were doing RRR, which was one of my parents' favorite films. They were so obsessed with that film. They were the ones who told me about it before it kind of blew up. I was just like, what? Like, how did you find out about it?
Yeah.
But that's what parents do. Older brothers and parents, sometimes they have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of every episode, I ask the same question, but I tailor it depending on what we're talking about. On a scale of 4 broken plates into a trash can being the lowest and smashing a grand piano being the highest, what item or items would you musically destroy to represent your life in music?
Unironically or ironically, an electric guitar, I think this is a larger metaphor over here, but essentially, I'll give you a quick example. When I moved here, I was like, I want to do this very specific thing in film scoring, and I hate pop music, and I just absolutely, hate it. And I had to produce pop songs in the Trolls movie, and I'm like, God damn it, I don't like doing this, but I had to figure it out and do it. And there's this running theme in my life where the thing I want to do, or the thing I don't like to do, ends up somehow, I have to do it. I end up in a position where I have to do it for an opportunity, for a connection, whatever it is, and I end up enjoying it and helps me grow. So in a way, I almost think the electric guitar, because it's like, as much as I don't want to destroy it, it just keeps, it's like I have to keep destroying it, It's like my thing is my guitar. But every single time I go back into hey, sorry, gotta chuck you out the window and figure out orchestral music now. So I don't know if that's, yeah, it's gotta be that.
Well, absolutely. As you can see, that is what I had here. I had an electric guitar. That's the right answer.
Oh, shit.
So yeah,
that's
there
awesome.
We go. You're always right. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Revolutions Per Movie. We release new episodes every Thursday on your favorite podcast app and additional bonus episodes every Sunday on our Patreon. The show's a completely independent affair, so the best way to support the show is through our Patreon at patreon.com/revolutionspermovie, where you can get weekly bonus episodes and shows, exclusive limited edition flexi discs and records and CDs featuring guests that have appeared on the show, and other exclusive goods sent to you just for joining. You can follow us on social media at Revolutions Per Movie and also find out more information about our various guests in the episode show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Bye!